All right. So now, thank you for joining us and welcome to our monthly webinars. My name is Andrea. I am with Minoria. Minoria is a company that's always looking to help disadvantaged businesses with any resources, education. And part of this education is our free webinars to get trained and provide all the tools necessary for the success of these businesses. Now, today's topic is a lack of capital. If that's an issue in your business, we are going to introduce a few resources that are outside of the conventional loans or the conventional business loans. So let's proceed with our presentation. But before that, I would like to provide some information of how this presentation is going to go about. If you scroll to the bottom of your screen, you are going to see a few tools that you can utilize. One of them is a chat box. That chat box, if in case you have any technical situations and any technical errors, some hearing problems, go right ahead and communicate that. I have Mauricio, who is our marketing director, that's going to help us with a lot of the technical issues that might come about in your case. Now, if these questions are concerning the topic that I'm speaking of, then maybe there's another area where it says Q&A, questions and answers. Make sure to submit the questions, and we'll make sure to address any of the questions that are submitted on the Q&A at the end of our webinar. Okay, so now we can move along. Oh, and before that, we also, any of the registrants that are participating will have a copy of this presentation, including all the links that are going to be provided as reference as we go along and educate you on this course. We also have encouraged all of you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's under minoria.ca, and that channel has a library of all the webinars that we have executed in the past, and it eventually will have this webinar that we're talking about right now. So just an overview of what we're going to be considering. The revenue is a big factor when it comes to the growth of a company. And statistically, it's proven that the majority of companies reach certain plateaus that we want to be able to identify even before we reach them, so we can understand what we're going to do. So on the we're going to start with understanding why and how these plateaus happen. We're going to talk about strategies to overcome them, provide the resource and programs, initiatives, and organizations that might be able to help our situation as entrepreneurs. We're going to discuss alternatives of access to capital, and we're going to wrap it up with any questions. All right, so let's talk about why businesses reach certain plateaus. And it all boils down to the business not starting the right way. The majority of companies, when they initiate a business, it's a person that knows about their industry, that they're, because of that knowledge and those skills, they end up going on their own and organically, by word of mouth, getting some type of work out of it, right? So let's say you're a contractor. The majority of the contractors become contractors because they started with another company and they started learning how to drywall and frame, for example. And now they see that they can do this on their own, and they can increase their revenue and their value by offering this on the side. And that's usually how it starts. And you start helping one person, the other person lets another friend know, and before you know it, you have a really good clientele, and you're growing. But the majority of these experiences is that as they're growing, they left out the most important part, which is planning. um, and that's usually what happens. So whenever you start planning, whenever you avoid the planning aspect, there's a lot of areas where you're gonna be hurting, right? The less educated you get it when you're going into a business or starting up a business, the more difficult it'll be to have success in your business. But there's a lot of companies, because they're really good at what they do, they have a lot of success and they even reach the million markets. However, they don't have the systems and procedures they're supposed to have, and they don't have the planning or the ultimate vision they're supposed to communicate to their team members. And that's where the plateaus come in. Some plateaus start as small as 100,000. Some businesses can't reach 100,000, and usually those businesses are because it's a one-man show, and all they have is a phone and maybe a calendar and some printed invoices that they give to their customers. But as they're growing, they realize that they don't have a process to continue growing outside of themselves, outside of their time. So that's where one plateau hits, and then maybe they overcome that. Let's say they bring family members, or they bring in friends, or people they grew up with, and or they hire. They get out of a certain profit that they got in a good job, or out of their savings they start hiring or helping or getting third party vendors to help them with a lot of the practices, especially when it comes to office practices and anything that has to do with assistance in general, as a partner. As you overcome that hurdle, and then now you're factoring in 250,000, 500,000, and then you reach another plateau. And another plateau is more towards dealing with paperwork that has to do with businesses, now that you're going into larger projects or larger contracts. And now you realize that you don't have that back office support. You have to be on the field. You, at that point, you probably feel very, very overwhelmed and overloaded. And it's all happening because you didn't start the right way. And this is normal. It doesn't mean that you are not a success. You're an amazing success, because you brought your business to that level without having the skills, the infrastructure that you're supposed to have. So now, if um, if there would be the case that you have you now sort of went a little back, you hauled everything of the service, and let's say you were able to have pretty good credit, where you were able to get some amount of funding, or there was a project where you got initial funding, and now you see that there's this amazing opportunity of growth, but you don't have systems in place, you don't have personnel, you don't have a vast knowledge of how to measure profitability. Then in that case, you hit another plateau. And it's very common that a lot of businesses, once they are in the $1 million mark, that's a plateau that's very hard to get out of, right? Now, you're generating within the million, which is great, but you are not generating over that. Then that's a plateau that has to do with making sure that there's a good communication process within the entire team. So those are areas where you start hitting these growing, you start facing these growing pains and hitting those plateaus. So examples are, anything that has to do with legal procedures. Sometimes you might be an introvert as an entrepreneur, and you're not into reaching out to people or professionals, networking, and all that good stuff. So you're not getting to know a lot of the professional services that you're supposed to have to support your company. Human resources and labor compliance is a huge factor for a lot of companies. Onboarding and proper training. There's a lot of businesses that are always onboarding, but they don't give the proper training, and these people end up leaving because they don't really know the purpose. They're not being fulfilled. They don't feel like they're a part of something, and you have a high turnover rate, and that high turnover rate is really hurting your pocket and your time. So that's a very, very common one. Identifying resources that might be available as a small business. If for contractors, general contractors, if you're not generating more than 26 million, you're considered a small business. And as a small business, you have a lot of advantages and resources to help you out. Minority-owned companies are the same way. You just got to make sure that you get properly certified, and you reach out to these resources to be able to get out of competition. Have really good education. There's so much information when it comes to that, and of course, understanding. I think that this is the most important one. Understanding why you do business, your core values, have a clear vision of what your future is, so you can communicate with your team members. Then after, we want to talk about operations. Operations usually is a big factor. How do you start with system operation procedures? How do you measure key performance indicators? All of those, sometimes as a business owner, we don't even like to hear that because we're set to our skill, right? And then we want to do what we like to do, but we, as business owners, we really do have to get educated, learn, understand, and then delegate. You don't necessarily have to do it on your own. Eventually, you're going to delegate it to a certain department, to a certain person, but you definitely need to have the knowledge of how that works. So those are the plateaus that we want to be able to see how we can overcome. So now let's talk about how can we overcome these. Well, one of them is that if you're a small business and you're still not generating 100,000, go back to the drawing board. I know it's hard, especially because you have to make sure that you have cash flow, right? You have to take care of your family, but it's very necessary for you to grow and not stay that way. So there's alternatives, that we're going to talk about, that can help you with access to capital, or help you with assistance in getting this type of help. So it's important to go back to the drawing board and really understand, to have a heart to heart with yourself, and if it's possible, and if you can, with your team members, with the team members that eventually are going to be leadership in your company, and talk about what are we going to do in the future. How big do we want to get? Do we want to go national? Do we want to stay local? If you want to stay local, what's the purpose, and what's your niche? What's the core ethics that you want your business to have? Those are very important. And then once you determine how big you want to go, who you want to connect with, what type of business you want to specialize in, that's when you start projecting for the future, especially when it comes to taxes, reporting taxes, and building credit. It's so important to understand where you want to go, because the majority of accountants and the majority of financial institutions they're so consumed in so many people trying to get tax exemptions and getting credits and showing all kinds of expenses, that if you don't communicate with these, if you don't know, let alone communicate with these accountants, that of your future projections and how big you want to be, then they won't be able to tell you this is the best strategy for you. And in reality, if you don't report that you're showing a profitability in your taxes, and you just stay with the cash that you get, you exaggerate all the expenses that you might have for your business, that's eventually going to affect you. It affects you in opportunities for contracting, especially for my contractors out there, trade contractors, general contractors. You're going to get hurt significantly because when it comes to construction, they're depending on your company to execute and deliver the whole entire project, regardless of how big it is, and you're taking as a project. So if you're trying to get a good sized contract, let's say a $500,000 contract, they want to make sure that you are financially stable and that you are going to finish this contract. And if you're trying to go into the public, federal, county type of projects, you are not going to get paid half and then get paid the rest later. It's not a residential type sector. It's definitely a opportunities that you got to make sure that you have capital reserves to be able to execute this project. And usually they'll pay, if this is a good organization and you have all your ducks in a row in regards of submission or paperwork, then you're going to get paid in 30 days. If that's not the case and you don't submit paperwork the way you're supposed to, there's no good communication, or the company, you never found out if the company pays net 30, and they're very very well known for paying after, like net 60 or net 90 or a 90 within 90 days, then you gotta get your reserve, you got to get into your reserves and make sure that you execute. So if these companies have had a past performed contractor that never completed, and the majority of these large contractors have gone through those situations, then they make sure that all your pre-qualification process is airtight to make sure that you're a contractor that can perform. So within the pre-qualification process, they're going to ask for those taxes. They're going to ask for your tax returns for your company and your tax returns that are personal. They ask for assets, balance sheets, all that good stuff. And if you don't have that ready, then you're losing out on opportunity for contracting. Now, what about capital? If you don't report the way that you're supposed to and show that your business is sustainable and healthy, there's a very minimal banks or financial institutions that are really going to give you this opportunity for funding. So, and then you're probably losing out on, you're going to lose a lot of money because if you're really in need of funding, you're going to end up having to get a personal loan, or you're going to have to end up having a high interest loan, or some of the alternatives we're going to be talking about, unfortunately, for this. Now, I mean, it's never too late, whether you're revenuing less than 100,000, you're revenuing less than 500,000, you're revenuing up to $1 million or more. There's always opportunities for you to project and learn from what you did or your mistakes, and now from now on start thinking in the future. So it's so important to get educated. You can overcome so many obstacles, so many problems, legal issues, compliance situations, if you just get educated and start reading books. If you get educated and start interviewing other contractors, you start doing some research of what's things to avoid and what's best practices within your industry. So it's important to help you with many factors, and finding resources that will educate you. And there's tons. We're going to talk about them shortly. Now, building relationships is a big thing in business. It's very important that if you have the introvert spirit, try to get out. You're going to have to get ready to start feeling uncomfortable all the time. But the more you are interacting, the more comfortable you'll get and the more easier it'll be. But get out of your shell, start talking and mingling with other people. And this is a concept that's overall. If you really want to go in specific of how to connect really and build relationship with people and companies that are going to help your business and that are related to your industry, feel free to connect with us and we can give you a lot of ideas in regards of that. The two minds or multiple minds are better than one. So if you want some of those ideas of how to build relationship and what to do and what strategy and how to approach, feel free to connect with us. Well, one of the areas where you want to start looking at to build relationship for professional growth is anything that's has to do with any organization that has to do with your industry. If you're in construction, there's plenty of organizations that help contractors. There's just AGC, and also depends when you really dig into what you really want to do, your core values, where your vision is, where your mission is, you'll be able to determine what organization is the best fit. Doesn't mean that you need to get involved with all these organizations. You got to make your research and see which one's the most active and which ones are the connections that you might want that organization has. So you can interview multiple organizations and say, okay, I think this organization is worth my time and my money to connect with them and be a part of it. Now, Chamber of Commerce's, again, it depends on the industry, but in Chamber of Commerce locations, either in cities or in general, there's Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, there's African American Chamber of Commerce, there's the National Chamber of Commerce. So there's a lot of Chamber of Commerces that you want to tap into and get educated on. Doesn't mean that you need to be a member of those. I do suggest to be a member of the ones, once you get educated and get investigate, the ones that are more active and can give you more value, right? And you can give them value in educating them and things like that. But like for example, construction, sometimes the Chamber of Commerce will not give you the connections to make other, if you're, especially if you're trying, let's say you're a company that's niche, that your niche, your focus is going to be federal contracts. Well, maybe Chamber of Commerce won't be, you won't have those contacts where they're going to give you a federal contract. However, in the Chamber of Commerce, you might be able to get affiliates that can help you execute a contract. You also can get professional services like lawyers or accountants or insurance representatives or human resources that will help you improve. And we're not talking about at that moment, but you're going to start building those relationships where you eventually can start working with them in the future, right? And then say, hey, I have a question in regards of this legal matter, or this contractor is not wanting to pay me. What other alternatives besides implementing a lien do I have in order for this contractor to pay me? So those are topics that you can have with them, and they'll answer because they know you and you build that relationship, and then you see the value in their skills, and then once you get that capital and you get that the momentum running in your business, you're going to include them because they helped you initially. So it's very important to have activity with some chambers of commerce. It doesn't have to be a lot, and you don't have to get involved with so many. As long as it's one chamber of commerce that you know is active enough, that's gonna expose you as a company and brand you, and get good connections. Now, once you get these connections, it's essential for you to create this database of all these contacts and segment those contacts in order for you to maintain that communication. Because there's a lot of companies, and I can tell you by experience that this is very overwhelming. It's a job on its own to build relationships. That's why there's positions of business development. That it has everything to do with building a relationship and branding the company. So once you start hitting all these events, you're not going to get good outcome if you don't do a follow-up, right? If you get all these contacts, you had great conversations, you have someone that might be interested in a project, or someone that's you can work together on a project. But if you don't follow up with them and you start getting involved, as soon as you hit the office, everybody takes you away and asks you stuff, tells you to solve situations, and before you know it, days passed, and now you haven't connected with and followed up with your contacts. Now there's systems and where you can, like a CRM system, where you can organize all these contacts and have a structured process, automate a process where you can keep in touch. Sometimes it's not the best way to approach, but at least you can keep them on record, and you don't necessarily need to automate a connection process. But it's always important to, let's say, if you complete a project, or if you have a product that you want to target, now you have all these contacts that are properly segmented, and you can share that information with them and connect with them either in person if you don't like virtually, or automation, or take advantage of all those perks of automation. All right, so let's talk about resources. What resources are available to you as a small business, a minority owned, women owned, uh, any business that's considered disadvantaged nationally? Well, we're going to talk about education and training initiatives. We're going to talk about subsidized programs and alternatives to capital. All right, so let's talk about the resources that are available for education. And I think these are the less utilized by businesses, and a lot of businesses don't feel like they need this. And business leaders, they sometimes they don't feel like they need these resources, um, because education is everywhere, right? You can YouTube and maybe find information that you need, and you're comfortably at home, and it's just a touch of a link. But it is important to connect, to get educated, and at the same time, with these organizations, you get registered on their system. And by getting registered on their system, if there's initiatives of being able to help you with other programs, they'll let you know. You're also doing it to build relationships. These companies, these organizations are here to help you. They're getting funded to help you for free. Take advantage of them, please. So let's go over some of the main ones that a lot of companies know about. And you know what? There's another organization that I didn't include because I want to have a complete separate webinar where they're going to be guest speakers, and that organization is SBDC, Small Business Development Center. Um, but the Small Business Development Center is also accessible for you to get any type of free training, free advice. You can get information on possible access to capital, opportunities for contracting. These are really good organizations. SBA, everybody knows SBA now, especially after the pandemic. SBA assisted so many companies with capital to be able to sustain themselves, and sort of being resilient for the pandemic, or to overcome the pandemic. So SBA is one, but it's not only an option for capital, but it's also a guide to get contracts, particularly with the federal market. If you eventually have that vision of getting into federal contracts, going into the millions, offering your service worldwide or nationwide, you definitely need to have SBA close to you, because they're going to be able to help you get certified. I don't know if you've heard of the 8A program. We've mentioned it in several webinars, but the 8A program is a 9-year program where you're certified as a disadvantaged business, and you get all these opportunities where you don't. In some cases, there's vehicles where there's very minimal competition, or they can just request you, and you can negotiate the price with a resident engineer or the decision maker, right? So it's very important to consider SBA as part of a communication and a relationship for your growth. If you're too small, you get a representative, and they'll work with you to be able to get you to that level where you might be able to get those opportunities. Now, SCORE is a sister company and another arm of SBA. It's very important to take full advantage of that, their website and those services they provide, because they get volunteers that have already been retired, and that have already went through the business ownership process. They have been successful, they've sold the business, they've gone through measurability factors, personnel situations, all these situations that you might be facing as you grow. They've gone through it, and you can have them as a consultant for you, and they can help you with so many areas where you can avoid errors, where you can have good growth and success, just because they're telling you their experiences and what they face, and they can even connect you to a lot of their relationships. It's very important to try and get into a SCORE and be a part of them. Besides the vast library that they have an amazing library in anything as small as how to build a website, to as large as understanding labor compliance, or HR, how to activate payroll, anything like that. You're going to get a lot of assistance and education, and that's all free to you. You just need to go into their website. There's also procurement technical assistance centers. This is this organization is a lot of the people that are already in the industry of working with works projects and federal contracting know about this organization, but the people that are wanting to go into that market don't know, and it's not, for some reason, it's not publicized that much. The procurement technical assistance is there to help you with any procurement opportunities. So if you go in there, they're going to start you off and telling you what marketing tools you might need, how to build your capacity to be able to get into contracting, possible partnerships that you might be able to do in order for you to gain experience. And if you're going through a process where you're needing some guidance on how to develop a good RFP, and this is your first experience, you're needing some guidance on how to assess an RFP, because there's a difference. One is assessing to make sure that this RFP fits you and there's no risk involved. And then the other one is assessing or evaluating an RFP to execute and bid on it, right? Any risk management situations, or so let's say you already got into a contract, you didn't realize that you needed to perform in a certain amount of time, and now you're getting fined daily for not completing your project. Well, these are things that you can really go with them and see how they can help you solve that situation. Doesn't mean that they're going to have the answer, but it most likely these are professionals that if they don't have the answer, they're going to connect you with someone that might have the answer. You definitely want to build relationships with them whenever you want to go into a larger market and larger contracting. Now, Minority Business Development Agency is an amazing agency that helps minority businesses regardless of the size. So this is where if you're already revenuing 50 million, you still are going to be able to get a lot of help. And if you're at that level, it's very common, and they have like an export division, expansion division, where you can get out of that plateau of the million threshold. They definitely can help you with connecting you with right resources, helping you with development of procedures, um, having that consultations or advice that you need of how to overcome a lot of the growing pains that you're facing. So definitely Minority Business Development Administration is one of them that you would need to reach out to. Now let's talk about well, there's a lot, but they come and go, right? It all depends on the funding that's available for these programs, and the fundings that are available are according to this economy, to initiatives that that were presented through a bill. So right now, there's a lot of programs that are out there that are an example that are out there that are related to emergency. No, I'm sorry, not emergency. Energy efficiency. Right? There's a very, very aggressive goal that especially the state of California has of being able to be zero carbon by a certain year. I can't recall the year, but it's a very aggressive initiative because there's a lot of carbon consumption, there's a lot of pollution, and there's a lot of habits that everybody has that is hard for us to eliminate right away. So that's why it becomes aggressive. So because this initiative is aggressive, they've dumped a lot of funding into this initiative, and there's a lot of opportunities for grants and subsidized programs. So, and that's an example. There's a lot of other examples of our situation, our economy, but an initiative that's been pretty stable are initiatives to help disadvantaged businesses. So in this situation, there's a lot of the small businesses that are facing a big problem, and the problem is personnel, assistance, help, right? A lot of small businesses are going through critical capital acts or critical capital issues. They don't have reserves, and that stomps the growth of that business, and it doesn't help them with systems and procedures because and better service because of that lack of capital. So that's one of them. And right now, the demand of personnel, of talent, of people to work for their companies is so huge that these large corporations are offering these amazing, salaries, hourly rates, benefits that a small business sometimes can't afford offering, right? So obviously, an individual that needs to feed their family, that wants to save up, that has a skill, that they know what they're worth, they might not be able to settle for what you have to offer, right? You maybe you can offer only minimum wage at this moment, especially in the training process, because you're already putting capital that you're not sure if you're going to get a return on, because you're not sure if this is a proper candidate for this position or for your company. That's where we go back to the core values. If you really want to make sure that you have a process of an amazing onboarding process, core values, core ethics, what your business is all about, will help you so much in regards of decision making when it comes to onboarding people. But going back to the problem, these small businesses are having critical situations where they're not being able to get the help they need. So Celico is an organization that it's a nonprofit organization that helps with workforce development. There's a lot of locations everywhere in the state of California. So if you are in a certain city, most likely there's going to be a Celico near your city or in your city. Search them up. They have an amazing program right now that's going on. It's called a work experience program. It's catered for a win-win situation, right? There's a lot of youth that's out there that sometimes they don't know what to do. They're not sure if they want to have a go into the universities. Sometimes there's youth that we want to be able to get them back on their tracks because they weren't raised properly or they lacked education. Their surroundings weren't favorable for them, but they do have the spirit and the talents to be great. So to help these youth members then to gain experience and be of value to a company, they're offering assistance in education. They're offering them opportunities in training and work experience. Now, they need small businesses to provide that work experience. And to lure and help these businesses, they're going to help them with funding. So they'll fund up to 200 working hours. Just calculate that. That's meaningful. That's the whole training process, right? They'll fund up to 200 hours. Sometimes there's exceptions to go a little more. And these hours will consist of them getting educated, getting paid, and you getting the help that they're supposed to. However, some of the obstacles that some businesses might have out of this program is time, right? Where do I get the time? Okay, you're eliminating the one of the biggest factors, which is capital. But if these are young people that are not relatively educated in your industry, and you're having to do that, where can I find the time? That's a big issue. And sometimes these businesses and these companies, your companies, might not have the systems and procedures to have proper training. And a lot of the reporting factors that you do to Celico involve you having to explain how you train them and the value you provided. So for a lot of situations, we have solutions. If that's a factor, make sure to connect with us because we have solutions in regards of the training procedures and what to do and things like that. But if it's not, and let's say you have a department already or you have a person that you want to grow that department to, you definitely can take advantage of this program. Identify if you already have certain connection with high schoolers or young people that are considering going to college, and you want them to you see the value, maybe because they're tech savvy, they have a great attitude, they have a lot of potential, and you see it in them. Then maybe we can gear them towards that program, and they'll help you get them onboarded on the program and get them into your company. Or they have like a really good database of people they're already helping and they have resumes ready for you. So reach out to them. There's also, let's say you exhausted the 200 hours, you got into the program, great. Yeah, I was able to get 2 or 3 people that were helping me. I reduced my efforts in training because I was able to train them at the same time. That's amazing, right? But now the 200 hours came up and I still feel like they need a little more training, and I'm not sure if I can afford it because we're in this transition. Well, if you're going through that problem, they have a solution for you as well. And the solution is that now there's another program that you can hop into that will provide you with half of whatever salary or hourly payroll you need to provide to your company. On the top, on the job training is also any type of training that you might need for your team. And there's a lot more too on the job training and the work experience program that than what I have the time to explain. So make sure to register to our next webinar. It's gonna be on the 29th of September. And that webinar, we're gonna have guest speakers that are in the program that can answer and are gonna concentrate just on this program, right? On the or just on the resources that they have, just on this company's Salico nonprofit organization. If in case you need any other, you want to be able to get ahead and understand these processes, you can certainly connect with them. I have the link included. You can go and get some information on how that works, all these how these programs work, and who to connect within your city area. You can also reach out to me and we can connect you that way as well. So take advantage of these resources, because it's not very easy to work with, the growth and not having good talent for your growth. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Just thinking a little, sorry about that. Okay, alternatives to access to capital. So let's talk about now capital. This is great, but I still need some money, some working money to be able to reach out, to do some marketing, to cover overhead, to continue our initiatives of being able to bring more business. Well, there's alternatives besides the business, the main business loan, right? If you have all these options, if you have a good credit or a credit that's over 660, if you have a home or some type of real estate, some type of collateral, good equipment, and if you have good cash flow, which those are the three that will balance you and get you a traditional loan, then that's great. But a lot of businesses usually fall in one or the other, right? If they have good cash flow, they don't have good credit. If they don't have good credit, if they have good credit, they won't have collateral. And so due to that, we're not, and due to the fact that we're out of the pandemic and the easy resources to capital and things like that, now we're going back to the same situation of conventional lending, and it's not easy. It's not easy. So if you are in a situation like this and you cannot qualify for some of the great programs that SBA offers in lending, or other private lendings that are with a better interest rate and more longer terms, these are some solutions that you can really be strategic and grow your credit, and make sure you nurture it and grow your company to the point where you're going to be able to have more access to capital and more options in a little better, with a little better conditions. But at this moment, let's say you need to stay resilient, surviving, and you need to perform on a project, or you have a potential opportunity where you can provide certain merchandise or certain products, but you don't have the initial capital to execute that. Well, what can you do? Well, there's business lines of credits, and these business lines of credits are usually, it has to do with your bank, right? If you have good cash flow, take advantage. Go to your bank and they'll see the history of your cash flow, and especially if your bank is more of a credit union, there's a lot more flexibility in credit unions to judge character rather than your credit or cash flow. But regardless, cash flow is always a factor. You always need to have a certain amount of cash flow. So if they see that you are, on time, you're not having overdrafts, you're having a great cash flow, they're going to provide, they can give you a line of credit where you can, it's almost like an accessible credit card with a business, with a bank, right? With a credit union. And these lines of credits are usually higher. So you can ask for the line of credit or get the a check or a credit card, and you can make purchases and then pay them off. And sometimes they're better interest than credit cards. It depends on the economy at the moment that you're looking at this webinar. So there's also equipment loans. These equipment, let's say you're a manufacturing plant, and you know that you would have a better opportunity for a contract if you can produce a lot more. So now you have need a heavy machine that's gonna produce all the amounts that you're needing to be able to do business with that person or with that organization or company. Well, if you go to a financial institution and let them know, this is the specific investment I want to do, and this investment is worth $150,000. What can you do? Then they'll see that the equipment would be technically the collateral, and of course they're gonna see some of your cash flow situations. They're gonna see your credit score, but they'll make better exceptions because you have a specific product. It's almost like auto finances. Anyone can get it in financing, right? It's in autos, and some people that haven't even had a drop of credit, they if you're willing to pay the interest and pay for it, they're going to give you the loan. It's the same thing with equipment loans. And the idea here is for you to really have a good plan of how to pay before, in order for you not to get hit and impacted and in debt, and then go into that hole of that you won't be able to get out of debt. Now, there's also invoicing, factoring, and invoicing financing. Okay, so if you have an intent of award and it seems like this is a for sure thing, you already have a contract, you provide that that invoice or intent of award, or that proposal, the signature address, if there's a commitment fee or if there's a down payment, you can show that now you just need to execute, and you need that money to be able to pay payroll, sustain your overhead, and make sure that you can perform. So you submit it to a financial institution that offers those type of options, and you're going to be able to see that they're going to be able to see that, yeah, you can perform. So we'll give you 30,000, or you will give you 100,000 to perform within, and you have to pay within 72 days for example, and we'll get out in a daily basis this amount. The interest tends to be fairly high, but this is the price of establishing a relationship with a financial institution. So now that you want to be able to get this opportunity of funding, perform, and if possible, pay it off a lot earlier. And some institutions will give you sort of like a projection that if you pay it 30 days earlier, or you paid 60 days earlier, this is the savings that you will have. And sometimes they're very relative within month to month. So it's important for you to have a plan where you're not going to get into a lot of charges when it comes to helping you get some financing and money ready. So now let's talk about invoice financing. It's very similar, but let's say you already know, but there's not something very guaranteed that you're going to receive it. but they'll say, okay, it seems like you already have an opportunity, and there's a good commitment that you're looking to be able to try and get that the financial institution to see that you can perform, and they'll do. It's not much of a difference between factoring and financing, but they can tend to be a little larger, right, in your regards of pride projects, and they'll send you. You might not, it might not be one project, but it might be like a project where you have a year or 6 months to perform, and now they're going to have to finance the project or the invoice, or whatever. So until you get financed, you just need to pay the whole lump, and it's only specifically to a certain price. So if you want a little more information, we have this link on the bottom. You can go in there. It's a really good article where it sort of explains all the business loan types that you have access to. You also have business credit cards. Those are, get educated on how to leverage the business credit card so they won't impact your credit, and do all the contrary. They can help your credit, and at the same time you're getting a certain amount of finances and access to these credits to be able to purchase equipment, purchase products, and then eventually give back as soon as possible that money, so you can start having a really good record. And sometimes it's better for you to have two things or three things going on at the same time if you can maintain these balances, because all of these companies are going to report to the credit bureaus, and they're going to see how you can really balance your finances and how you can really work with money to help you explore those possibilities. And then, of course, the microloan. We're talking about good size. I mean, it's decent sized loans that will help you for 1 or 2 months to sustain your company overhead, or the payroll cost of your company. And those are good for whenever you do have that net 30, or the company is delaying on the process of paying you back, but eventually you're going to get paid. I mean, getting a microloan will allow you to, even though it might be high interest, it will allow you to get funding to make sure that your business doesn't have a complete stop and it doesn't get affected. Some of the microloans are also, and some of all of these alternatives are also good alternatives, just in case. Let's say you have multiple projects going on, and or multiple contracts going on, and now you don't have um, much capital for another opportunity, but this opportunity, you're going to win it, you're going to be able to perform, and you're going to get a really good profit. Then that's a very good strategy of bringing in a microloan to be able to sustain that project as well. All right, so those are the options and alternatives to access to capital. Now let's talk about a little bit about grants. Um, there's grant opportunities, and like I mentioned, there'll be more grant opportunities depending on what impact and what purpose. Specifically, these large corporate companies, or government entities, or quasi-government entities have, nonprofit organizations as well have, to be able to solve a situation, an economical situation that's going to help your community, or your economy. So in this situation, we want to make sure that if the energy consumption explanation that I told you about, that type of initiative is a great example of how there's going to be a lot of opportunities for grants, right? A lot of these opportunities, sometimes businesses can't get them, and sometimes they can. So it's a very specific area where if you're trying to pursue grants, just note that a lot of these grants are the same as developing an RFP. So if you feel like a request for a proposal is overwhelming enough, the grants are going to be very similar to that, especially the higher the amounts, or the higher these amounts of awarded grants are. So let's talk about grant opportunities for businesses when it comes to disadvantaged businesses. I highly recommend you to go to this link. This is a link for women and minority-owned businesses that show a lot of links that will take you to these grant opportunities. If you Google grant opportunities to help minority or small businesses, you are also going to have a lot of initiatives that you might see, not at this moment, but maybe you can register to those portals and let them, get these alerts of whenever these windows are going to open for these grant opportunities and how you have to be prepared. Now, it's important that with a lot of these grant opportunities, they give you like small windows and they promote it significantly. So if they give you these 2 or 3 days or 4 days to submit the application, you got to be ready for all that. So make sure you have all the proper documentation for this, like your tax ID number, your licenses. And I just realized that there's English and Spanish because we cater to a lot of Hispanics. But your driver's license, your pretty much all the documentation that you received from any of the COVID impact project or COVID impact applications, grant opportunities, it's pretty much the same thing. So you want to be able to have that accessible in a file, in a cloud file, for you to start submitting all the paperwork that you're supposed to. All right, well, that's it for now. Let me see if for any reason, let me check and see if there's anyone in our Q&As, and it doesn't seem like there's any Q&As or questions. You guys have any questions at the moment? Or if you don't have any questions at the moment, but later on we're out of the presentation and something comes up, feel free to connect with us. My name is Andrea. I can certainly help you, and our team can help you with any questions you might have. We highly encourage you to go into we have free evaluations or an assessment that you can participate in, and we can help you. We can certainly help you with the diagnosis of what's the best strategy to go about according to your existing capacity. So this is the form right here on the bottom, and then we also have I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and any of our social media links. And in our social medias, as long as you put in Menoria, you will have it. If you go into our website, you'll see our social media links. Sorry about that. And then if you, for any reason, can't find anything and you want to communicate, you can always send us an email or call us, and we'll be able to help you with any questions you might have. All right. Well, I think that's about it. I'll see you next month, and hopefully you can participate on that, getting further educated on that amazing subsidized program. There's a lot more to it, but it's too much to consider. So if you want to learn more, let us know, connect with us, or send us an email, and we'll make sure to give you more information on these programs and put you in our database where we'll continuously update you of any new programs that are coming out. Okay. Thank you. See you next month.